we are going to draw this 1-point subway. We started it in class, but I'm going to just go back over the points that we covered, and that way the couple people that missed class this Monday will be able to catch up. So we talked about your horizon line, and I'm going to draw this in on the picture so that you can then kind of get an idea of what I mean. But this is the line where basically the earth and the sky meet, and they call this the horizon line because of that. It's the horizon line. And everything goes back to basically, can you see that? How it looks like all these lines converge at this one point. All those lines come into that point, and there's only one point being used in this drawing, so they call it 1-point perspective, and they call this point the vanishing point, or a lot of people will label it the VP. Okay, so vanishing point. All right, so this will be our drawing that we're going to try to recreate. Kind of put it up here so we can be looking at it. So this horizon line is almost at half, so we can put that basically about at half on our paper. I'm going to actually lower it a little bit than half just because it's more interesting than smack dab at half. And I've made a faint line because I don't want to have it be so dark that it's going to interfere with the subway, tram, and everything else that I'm trying to draw. Just so you know, this is as far as we got in class today. So we were able to draw the tracks, the subway, and some of the poles. So I'll try to fly through this. Again, please stop the video as we go along so that you feel like you know where you're going. Okay, let us start with, actually we started with the tracks in class. I feel like just going to the poles. So let's go to the poles. Let's put our vanishing point about a third, like right about here. How many inches is that? Sort of at 4 inches from this edge. And we will run it from there. I'm going to draw the top, this line right here, and the bottom line that connects these poles at the bottom. So we're going to draw these 3 columns in. So starting with the point, I'm going down about 1 inch from the top of my paper, and I'm going to draw a nice faint line. I'm making mine a little darker than you should. I'm trying to see if I can even see it. I'm hoping you can see it. I'll enlarge it a little bit. How about that? I say, come on. Okay, so you can see hopefully a little better. Okay, and then I'm going to go 1 inch up basically, attach it to my point, and draw my guideline here for my poles. Okay, gosh, I just don't want to forget. What happens is I wind up filming and then I'm over here and you can't even see what I'm doing, so All right, so this pole, we're going to do this first pole. This first pole is in your peripheral vision, so it's not going to be complete. It's going to be basically just half of the information is there, half of the visual information is there. So about 1 inch out or so. I don't know, what is it? Again, the inch thing, yeah, about 1 inch out. This is just to give you a rough estimate about how big I made it. This I can make it fairly dark because this line is not going to go anywhere. I'm going to keep that line in place. See how much darker that is than my other lines? And then I talked in class about this, but if you're gone, see how this top of the pole kind of makes a frowny face, a frowny arc, and this has an upturned arc like a smiley face? That is because, let's see, find a clean piece of paper here. That is because the eye level, I guess I'll go over here. If you have, let's say, a circle, kind of drawing a circle, okay, and you put a plus sign through it, there are many lines, arcs that go in this circle. There's kind of a low arc, and then as it goes further and further back up the circle, it gets more accentuated. It's kind of really low down. It gets more and more extreme, and the same goes this direction on spheres. This is at play on all round things. So this, if you were to turn this into one ginormous circle, This would be at the top of the circle, this is at the bottom of the circle, and the eye level or the horizon line is in the middle. So here you have that horizon line and you have that arc at the top and the arc at the bottom, and then you have your lines that go straight up and down because this is one point. But that's what's happening. This is an ellipse. It's actually a circular object. Can you see how it would be like that in the ceiling? And the same on the bottom. It is a circle, except that it's laying flat, and it causes that circle. I know my hands aren't exactly circular. I could try to make it. There we go. And notice how the negative space, the hole here, will change into an ellipse, and it kind of gives it this kind of ovalish shape. I guess, is that better if I keep my fingers out of the way? So that's what's happening, and you're seeing this because your eye level is here, it's going to arc up, and because your eye level is here, it's going to arc down. Now, if you were higher than the pole, like so, here's coffee cup, here's my horizon line, coffee cup split in the middle. If your head was resting on the table, the cup would do that kind of thing. But if you're looking down on it from a different eye level, and your horizon line, your eye level is here, and the coffee cup's under, you're going to be able to see the whole top of the coffee cup, and then the bottom of the cup. So both the outer edges are going to go down because they are under the horizon line. They're all going to go down. The back side will go up because it's the back. But anyway, that's what's happening. That's why it's curving. It's curving up. All right, so we're going to just give ourselves some information up here. We're going to make it curve kind of up. We're going to let it fall off the page because it would have hit the table, right? You don't want to squeeze the whole curve in, or else it's going to look like you have a chopped up or a skinny column. Again, a little bit lower. Oh, there, like that. I am trying to keep my paper stagnant, so I'm going to turn it over because it's easier for me to arc. There, that's better. Okay, there's our first pole. Okay, we can even put a poster on it, actually. Even though it is a square piece of paper, it's going to have the same kind of arc in it because we're going to make it go through the horizon line. I'm going to grab my ruler and say that this is just part of my poster. And it's going to kind of arc on the bottom because it's glued to the, and it kind of arcs here because it's glued to the same post. So that flat line is actually going to get curved like the post does. And you can be all spiff. Remember we talked about how you can turn corners. You can it's kind of got a curled edge to it. See how that works? It still works even in this setting if you wanted to do it. This thing has gotten brushed up against people walking by. You can kind of play that game. So you've got a ratty old poster on there. All right, now we're going to do the second post. This post, let's say it's about a 1/2 inch space between the two posts. Draw your outer edge of your post, rather light because some of this is going to get erased. And if our post, let's say it was about, we're approximating, if it was about, say, that wide, it's going to be thinner than this one. Not a lot, but it is going to be thinner. So I'll draw how big I think the post should be. It's thinner. Obviously, it's not as wide as the first post. I'm going to draw my arc and draw it this way on the bottom. And then I can come in with an eraser. And if it's starting to get a little confusing, I can start doing some erasing. I don't need this line anymore. This was just helpful. Kind of erase some of that now. I don't need the midline either. It's on my poster on my thing. Whoa, I erased my ruler. So you can kind of clean as you go if you want to. Okay, there's my two posts. I'm going to make the third post in the back. And here's my space. It's about a 1/2 inch. I need to make this space smaller than this space, more narrow. And this post, more narrow, if it's about that big, it's smaller. Not drastically smaller, but just a little bit. And if you need to measure, I would measure in the midline right here on the horizon line. If you're like, I really want to know how much it is, you could say, all right, this one for me is 2.5 2.5 centimeters or 25 millimeters, and then come over here and, oh, see, I've got a centimeter. I've got like 13 millimeters, so I've definitely made it thinner. Okay, and then you go ahead and do it again. I've got the arc. I have the arc. And then I can go ahead and erase. And for this drawing, we're just going to draw 3 columns, just like it is in the digital drawing I found. I'm sorry, I don't know who to give credit to. I found this online. I just thought it was a nice, simple drawing. And then we can go ahead and see where the point is inside this backdrop wall. We can go ahead and I'm going to straddle that a centimeter and a centimeter. It's a kind of a centimeter below and a centimeter above. And I'm going to go ahead and make that wall. I can erase these lines. I don't need them anymore. Again, stop the video as you need to, because sometimes you can draw along and sometimes it's like, stop, back it up. What did you do? Okay, so you've got your 3 columns. It looks so nice. Okay, let's go on. From this square that we did, let's draw some of this flooring that's going on. We have to report to the point. Notice I didn't erase it because I really do need this point. So I'm going to do, let's just connect the dot to the corner of the building. Corner of the building, corner of that wall. I'm going to draw it out. And draw that track lighting in here. There's that track lighting area. There. I'm now going to draw this blue area. It's kind of just a warning area where people's feet ought not to go. And I can draw on the tile flooring. I'm going to draw some back here. These are wide tiles. Make these rather massive. Okay, and then see how these lines just lay flat. So I'll put one kind of in front. Oh boy, see, I like to, okay, I gotta pay attention to what the screen says that you can see, sorry. So go ahead and draw that in. I'm just putting this down to give myself some place to start. Now I'm going to decide how big I want my tile. I'm going to make sure my tiles are really, really big. So I have a pretty big wide tile. Now I have to say, okay, my tile is about that big. The next tile needs to be a little bit smaller. And see how this tile ended just behind the column? I'm going to end mine just behind the column, and that ought to work actually pretty well. This one is definitely smaller than this one, and I'm going to again put this behind the column, but I also have to remember to go this way, don't I? Did I do that back there? No, I did not. And back here too. Make sure they line up, okay? So that seam actually goes back into the distance. And now I have a nice area in which to do things like throw garbage on the ground, or we won't throw garbage on the ground. Okay, let's see. Let's go over to our train. Look at that. I think I need to readjust this. I hope you have a feature of zooming in. I'm not sure that you do on your computer. If you do, it's really helpful. Okay, so tracks. So here's that lighting. Let's go ahead and put our lighting in. And for this, what we'll do is we'll use the point, and I'm going to measure to the right of the lights and the left of the lights. So I'm just going to put a faint line in here, something I can kind of help me to know how big these lights will be. So the bottom one, see how they just kind of gave you that starting information? I'm just going to make that back arc. And then I'm going to say, okay, the next light needs to be, I'm going to put it in the middle of the tile. And it's just laying flat. So it's, you know, I talked about those ellipses. Even though we know it's a circle, I'm going to put the little dome. It's going to lay flat, not like a total circle. And if it's that far apart, it's going to be just a little bit closer the next time. And I'm going to stay within these two guidelines. So my ellipses will just get, okay, so it's that big. The next time it's going to be a little bit closer together. These ellipses will just get smaller and smaller because I'm keeping them within the framework of those guidelines that went to the point, okay? So they won't, if I made it this wide down here and made it the same, say if I took this light, the size of it and put it back here, it would look completely out of place. So it needs to follow those two guidelines. Okay, so the space is about this much. I'm going to kind of make it tighter. And again, I'm just looking at those spaces and making them tighter each time. A little bit shorter, a little bit shorter, shorter. Okay, things get closer and closer and closer together as they get into the back of the point, and they get smaller and smaller and smaller. Okay, let's go to the train. Okay, so this is the platform, the part where you'd fall off down into the ditch. So let's make the ditch. Now, the train is going to take over some of these lines in here, so I'm going to be rather faint when I'm in here. I'm going to go ahead and on the corner of my paper, just kind of floating up maybe about an inch again, and connecting it to the point, make a guideline. All right, and then I'm going to go up a little bit, not much, maybe 1/4 of an inch. And this is going to be the top of basically like a curb. I'm going to just kind of use flat lines here just to kind of symbolize it for you. And then what I want to do is drop down maybe a little more than 1/4 of an inch, like 1/3 of an inch, and draw the little wall to the curb. And just so that we can see it, why don't you go ahead and draw, what you do is you draw an vertical upright line here and a completely horizontal line here. It's a longer line, and that corner is going to hopefully make it look like a curb. And I'm going to go ahead and do it again, make a flat line here, and then a line going up and down, and that's going to just help me see that this is a curb. And you can kind of shade it in this direction too if you want, just to kind of see it better. Okay, now we're going to have some gravelly space before we start making the railway line rails. So I'm drawing a line that's another, I don't know, what is that? It's like 1 centimeter tall to the point. And I'm going to make flat little gravelly marks for myself just so I can kind of see it, little flat. That's the gravel. And then over here, I'm going to make some gravel, another graveled space. Not too much space, just a little bit, because the train is going to take over. So there's my little gravelly space here. And now we're going to build the train tracks. Okay, so my gravelly space is this blue area you just did, but that's the railway bed, this dark floor area that gets so dirty. Okay, now this is the top of the rail. So I don't want to make my rails too thick. So think about, like, how big do you think a rail should look? It's just a small sliver, like if that's the top of the rail. And I'm going to make the top of the rail over here. If you feel that you should kind of color that in, or, you know, just so you can see it better, I think I'll color mine in a little bit. This is the top of the rail that the subway will travel on. Now I'm only going to stop about where I did the second seam because I'm going to put the train right here. I don't want to color that part in just yet. Okay. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to, I did this in class, I was telling you, rails tend to have kind of like this curved top, and then they have this kind of underside where the wheels kind of latch onto it or sit on it, rest on it, and there's kind of a wall. So they kind of stick up. So we're going to have this third line. So there's the top of the rail, and then there's this little third area, and that's just like our curb. It's just like a mini curb. So I have another line just under it, and that's the height of the rail. Oh, I made it really, really short, didn't I? It's a squatty rail. Okay, and I'm just going to kind of make these little C's so you can kind of see it. That's the side of my rail. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Okay, so sorry. Let's turn this into this side of the rail and erase that. I am sorry. That's why you don't make it pitch black. Okay, so there's that. Let's make this as the side of the rail. If you can kind of see that. And then this is the top of the rail. And I'll color that part in. We did this part in class, so this is for the benefit of those that weren't here. Okay, so we've made our rails. And then now we want to put in, let's put in our train. So the way I think we should do our train, just so that it's, we can we'll do the train tracks in a minute. Let's make the front of the train. So these are our rails and this is the walkway. So I'm going to make it, kind of make like a, here's the corner of the train. It's going to sit on the tracks and come over to this side. This is the corner over here. I'm going to curve it up and this train's going to sit right here. So the edges on this side go flat and the edges can kind of come up. So it's sitting well within the bed of the train. Now I did keep the corner here, but that was just, you can cut that part off if you want to make it look more snug inside. Just have this mark come out here and then that corner will disappear, but I just wasn't sure how confusing it would be. All right, so now we're going to make the top of the train and let's make it above the horizon line, like maybe by a 1/2 inch. I'm just going to give myself a roof line for how tall I want the train to be. This line will not, it will just be used as a guidance. It will get erased later. So I'm going to curve the face of the train parallel like that, and there's my guideline as to where to end it. So I'm drawing the curved face of my train. Please don't worry if it doesn't quite look like the drawing on that we're looking at. This is just to give you an idea to go on. Okay, so now I'm at the top of my train, kind of my train face. It will just disappear, and then the side of it is going to go to the point. I'm going to make sure I don't draw through my wall. And there's my starting of my train. Now we can clean this up a little bit so we can start seeing our train. And I'm just going to use my eraser to start taking some of these lines out. If you want to use your ruler as an eraser card, it's really helpful. You just hide the line with your ruler and then you can erase right up to the ruler. And it's just kind of a handy trick. It keeps your line, but you can erase quite a bit. Or just be careful. One of the two. You can do that. Okay, so I'm just going to erase some of this just to give myself some, because the rails aren't going to show. The train is in the station. So there's the edge of the platform. There's my train, and I'm ready to start doing some details on my train. So we can just follow the lines of what's going on here. This is a straight on object at you, just like this is, which is why it's square on. We're seeing the face of it. This is the side of it. So the faces are going to be much more blockish and regular and gridded. Okay, they don't actually go to the point. They're face on. But the other things are. Okay, so let's grab. I'm going to make like a destination information placard. And I'm just using the lines that I see here. I can make the window. And again, I'm just kind of using, and you can kind of make reflection marks. Here's my, say my headlamps. I don't know that that's what they call them. but the side is going to go to the point. Up and down. So I've got that going on, and can make some marks just to kind of delineate it. Okay, if I wanted to make side windows or anything like that, maybe let's say that this is the kind of the conductor's door. I would want to use this point as my guide. Up and down, and then follow that line. And notice I kind of let that come around. I didn't make this completely high up or low down. I kept these kind of uniform together. And I could make the whole bank of windows going down the train. Move it over a little bit. But I would follow the point. I'm making sure it's to the height of that conductor window. And then I could make like some train lines. You know what I mean, like car lines. Maybe make like a little shadow in here if I wanted to. Make it a little darker so it looks kind of like there's some division. And I have a train. Actually, I like this line that comes through here, so I think I'm going to continue it on the other side. And there we go. Okay, let's make some train tracks. All right, these are really easy. You just have them, they're on the ground, and they're going to be flat. So if you decide this is how wide the tile, what do you call it, the tie needs to be, this is that tie right there. Just make the next one somewhat more slender. But this is still rather in your face. This is still very up close, so you don't have to go too extreme with it, because it's still very detailed up in front. What you just don't want to do is, like, if this space is about this wide, don't make this space wider. Or this tie is about this wide, don't make one wider. Make it the same, if not a little bit smaller. Okay. So just analyze, how big is the space? Make it about the same, if not a little smaller. How big is the tile? Again, about the same, if not a little bit smaller. And I'm done. Okay. Now we're going to go to the ceiling. Let's work, or I guess we can, yeah, the wall, the top of the ceiling. We want to make sure the train fits within the within the structure. So, make sure I'm in the view of the camera. I'm going to go above the train on the roof so that it will definitely look like the ceiling is tall enough. Make sure it goes to the point, and somewhere halfway through the roof of the train, I'm going to stick a line right out of its head. Okay? And then I'd like to make sure, see where this column is, this corner? This is the corner of the passenger area, so I'm going to attach this and this together and go ahead and draw a line up. It's going to feel weird, okay? Like it's just like, what did I just do? But it will work. Now let's make ourselves some lines that are flat. Just like those railroad tracks, we're going to make kind of like some flat lines just to give ourselves kind of a ceiling texture. Let's do this. Let's go in front, because then we can get smaller and smaller. It's a little easier if you start out in the peripheral. So maybe about 1 inch down, go ahead and make yourself a line, flat. And then again, it's just a little bit less than 1 inch, and a little bit less than that, and a little bit. And if you need to, you can measure from like point A to point B, and then just a little bit less from each, just a little bit less. Or if you want to try to practice with your eye, go ahead. What we just don't want to see is that these back in here are just as big as these, because then it's going to really look strange. Okay, and there's your ceiling. We can make posters over here, little advertisements. And these are just like the windows. Remember the windows you did in your buildings? So I'm at the point. I'm going to go ahead and make the tops of 2 posters. And then I'm going to go ahead and bring them, make sure you can still, okay, straight down. Straight down, straight down. And then I'm going to line the outer line to the point and go ahead and cut off these posters. See how I have these little tails? Don't worry about it. Just guard the bottom of your posters with your ruler. Grab your eraser and just kind of creep up on that until those tails go away. And then you've got your poster, and you can double line them, kind of giving them a framework. But make sure the bottom goes to the point. Going to the point, lining it up, and then drawing them in. And then you could go ahead and make a, oh, I don't know, what do we want to advertise? Maybe it's just a window out into the world. No. Eat here. Lettering, you can do lettering, but let me just warn you about lettering. We did block lettering, right? We did that already in class. If you wanted to do lettering, go ahead, and what you would do is you would make some guidelines. Actually, it's good to talk about lettering. Lettering just doesn't float. I'll show you 2 kinds of lettering, okay? Let's just put eat here, or eat this, I don't know. So the E, see, I made these guidelines to help me to know where to put, where the tops of the letters are. So the E is going to go upright, but this would be the top of my E. This would be the bottom of my E. I'd have to go to the point for these bars in my block lettering. They have to go to the point. This one would go up and down, this one would go up and down, but not the middle. So it's not as just cut and dry as it looks when it's in 1-point perspective. There's my E. My A can kind of get fudged because it's a diagonal. Of course, I would suggest you use your ruler. But that bar for the A would need to go to the point. And then I can go ahead and use these. So you see how that works? You have to go to the point. There's the top of my T. I'm going to use the bottom of my E to determine the height of my T. And now everything else can go up and down straight to my guideline. That's going to look correct. But if I were to write, and let me just do a bad version really quick, if I were to have the point and then just write on that poster, eat like straight, it would actually, what it would do is it would make it pop out. Like if I just keep it straight like eat, it would actually cause it to be blocked out. It would actually cause these letters to float up at you. And it won't smear against the wall like it's supposed to. This is stuck against this wall, and because those letters are stuck against that wall, they have to report to the point. Now, let's make an exit sign right here. Let me show you the difference. So with an exit sign that's just square on like the face of the train, then, I mean, we can just make ourselves a floaty sign here. Just a rectangle. And you can now put your little block lettering here. I'll just case this out so we don't spend a lot of time, but I would, make it block like we did, draw it out, how you did, how to do this. All that exiting, that, your block lettering. Here's my exit sign. And again, I would spend the time to draw it out, but you can go ahead and make the little posts that stick up. and go ahead and make the, remember how these curve like this? These are like huge ones, and just make that little, make a little, kind of like a little floaty placard on the ceiling. Make sure they are the same height because you don't want the exit sign to look like it's, I don't know, like one side's floating a little wider than the other. Now you have this drop down exit that's sticking straight at you. That works. This straight at you doesn't work over here. It has to be to the point. Now, this is not a piece of paper floating from the ceiling. This is a thicker box, and you can see underneath it. So you have to make sure that the bottom of the little exit sign goes to the point, and then it will look correct. Okay. Now, if you moved your exit sign a little bit over, you're going to have to decide, but like you might be able to see a side of the box. Mine, I didn't, but if my exit sign were over here, I might have been able to see this side of the box, and this side would have to go to the point, but that's only if it was moved over. Either way, that where, see this line right here, right there, this side, if the whole side of the box is somewhere in your ruler or over, then yes, it's going to go to the point because you can see it where you're standing, and vice versa. If you moved your exit over here, it's being able to be seen on the side of the ruler, so you would see it. Okay, so that's the project. That's as much as I'm going to require, but if you want to put in more detail, or there's all sorts of, I can post this on the website, and you can take a look if you want to try any of the other little features, put some garbage on the ground. You sure are welcome to put people in it or whatever, but this is what I'm requiring. Okay, but try to make that look better. Okay, thanks so much.